Episode 7. 7. Oh.
Made it. We made it to 7, man.
We're made here. It to 7. And we are here. I'm Mark. That's my cousin Jacob. We are coming to you week to week, breaking down a film that we are linking from the previous one we just did. The last movie we did, Lady in the Water, blowing up on YouTube right now. And we linked the Lady in the Water for this movie, Barney's version, starring Paul Giamatti.
And he killed it in Lady in the Water. So
he murdered it in Lady in the Water. That movie isn't the movie it was without Paul. So it's only right we linked it with Paul. It was, I think this, we'll let the viewers know. Me and Jacob we alternate links. So
yeah,
Jacob gets to choose the link from this film. I got to choose the link from Lady in the Water. I chose Paul, and I chose Barney's version because 10, 11 years ago, I was stationed in Bahrain, and when you're deployed in a military setting, you are limited to what you can purchase and what you can't. And you're very bored. There's a lot of time to kill. And for me, obviously, I would use movies to kill my time, and I would do a lot of visits. We would have to take a bus to get to another Navy base that wasn't on our base. And they had this huge PX. It was a Navy PX. And they had DVDs and an electronics section. And when I was in there one time, I saw this movie starring Paul Giamatti called Barney's Version. And I love Paul Giamatti even when I was, 20-something years old. And I saw it and I picked it up. I watched it and I fucking loved it. And people had the same sentiment as me, obviously. I think this movie got a 7.2.
7.3, actually.
7.3 on IMDb.
IMDb, yeah.
And me and Jacob, this show, when we're flicking off, we use IMDb because everybody else sucks and IMDb is better. So, yeah. Barney's Version. Let's get into it. This movie is a wild ride. It's based off of book, same name, Barney's Version, and it follows a character by the name of Barney Panofsky, who is a Jewish guy, and he develops dementia, Alzheimer's. He develops Alzheimer's, and it follows his life, his relationships, his many marriages, his decisions, and I thought it was a great movie to do for the podcast because of this. It was really hard to capture on film based off the book. When I first watched the film, immediately went and bought the book to see just what the challenges were. Because dude, we love film. I love film so much that I wanted to know what this guy read. And when you look at interviews that this director gave, and let's shout out to the director real quick. I don't have his. It's
Richard L. Lewis.
J. Lewis, I thought.
You're right.
Yeah. Richard J. Lewis. Not a big director. I think he's only done 2 films, like you said. He's still heavily involved in television. Me and Jacob were talking about that. He actually directed one of the episodes from Dune Prophecy, which you just let me know a couple minutes ago, which kind of blew me away. But yeah, no, this film was crazy. It was really hard to do. And it was not a success in the box office. It cost $30 million. They only ended up making about 12.
That's gotta hurt.
I mean, you talk about a flop. That's a flop in the studio's eyes, and it kind of makes sense why this guy hasn't, had another studio roll the dice with him. But that being said, when you watch this film, it really looks like a studio backed film. And it was very hard to, the hardest part about this film is capturing the age and how, like, because this guy, when we meet Barney in the film, I think he's in his 20s, his early 20s or something like that, and we follow him all the way until
Eh,
his untimely
until his death.
demise,
Yeah.
until his death. So um really hard to do in film. They didn't use CGI for this. A lot of the age stuff was because of the acting, the mannerisms, stuff they would say. Really hard
Makeup, the grayed
makeup,
hair, yeah.
really hard to do, I think, in film. But what is really intriguing is that a director like this, a nobody, so to speak, chose such a difficult task to capture on film. um, as far as the synopsis, I think I hit it on the nail, so to speak.
I would say the only other thing to throw in there, it is sort of just a biopic of this guy's life, is that pretty early on in the film, you get this idea that he may have murdered somebody. And
Right.
so the film explores throughout the film, did he actually murder this guy? What happened? You know,
Well, it's not just the guy; it's his best friend, Boogie.
yes, exactly. Not some random person. And, we'll get into that, I guess, as the story unfolds or as we talk about different things, because it takes you on a little bit of a ride as an audience member,
It
from
does.
pretty much the second scene of the movie all the way till the final scene of the movie as to did he actually commit this murder.
Right. That was the big question mark in the book, and it was the big question mark in the film was who killed Boogie. And we'll get into that later. For now, let's start this off with, did you enjoy it? Did you like it? What did it make you feel? I'll let Jacob roll with it first. What did this film do to you?
For me, I felt a little unsatisfied in watching the film. I was a little more satisfied once it got to the ending. Uh, it was hard for me to really pin down exactly what I didn't like about it. It definitely wasn't the acting. It definitely wasn't the directing. It definitely wasn't the quality of the way
This
things were shot and produced. Everything was done really well in that regard. For me, you've got Barney is a character who is meant to be unlikable, and there's plenty of other films I've watched that follows the life of somebody who's unlikable, where there was some other hook that got me in. Um, and at different parts in this movie, I really was invested, and then at other parts, I was just like, "Why do I care about this?" Like, so, I had a hard time pinning down exactly how I felt about it. I definitely didn't hate the movie, but I definitely walked away going, "Okay," like, and really trying to analyze over the past several days, like, trying to figure out exactly what it was that I found unsatisfying. It was a little hard to pin down. I think one reviewer from the New York Times sort of nailed it a little bit. They said the way they felt about it was when you look at, like, what this film is on paper, you've got marriages, divorce, a murder, you've got lots of things that sound really good and intriguing, but parts of the movie play out sort of like just a repetition of a list like that. It's like you feel like it's just going from this to this to this, and you're like, Okay, well, why do I care?" But overall, I will say that that's also the sign of a quality movie sometimes, or at least an interesting movie, is the fact that when you do think about it after the fact and think, why do I keep thinking about this? My wife and I were discussing it. She liked it more than I did. And she said, "I think this is a movie I'll be thinking about for several days after it's over." And I was like, "I don't think I will," but she was actually right. It is something that has kept me thinking about it and thinking about it for sure.
For me, man, when I first watched this film, I was, the balance between humor and tragedy in this film was top notch for me. I'd never seen something like it. I guess you could kind of compare it to Sideways, so to speak, but uh Paul's dealing with a Barney in Sideways, and and Paul is Barney in
Yeah.
Barney's version,
Yeah.
and it was interesting to see, man. I mean, for me, like we were discussing, different folks that watch this movie are gonna interpret it a different way based on what their life experiences and how they would have made decisions and whatnot. And I think that's what the book captured. But not only that, after watching it for the first time and it motivating me to pick up a book and read it all the way through from front to cover, I thought was brilliant as well. And for to get me to pick up a book is really hard. I mean, I'm not a big novel guy, I don't read too much, but after reading the film or after reading the book and then seeing the film, I realized, like, what a bold decision for this director to go, "This is the movie I wanna do." But when you research and you look at interviews that this guy gave, this book really did something to him. He really enjoyed it. And he read it in 1997, and in 2001, the author of the book had passed away. And after that had happened, that was the motivating and driving force for this director to really film this. And what a bold decision. It did not pay off for him, I don't think, but I think he came out with a really great, phenomenal film as far as I'm concerned. We talked about, in Best in Show, the rewatchability of the film and how great it was. And that's easy, I think, to capture in a comedy, the rewatchability. But for something like this, a drama, sort of comedic tragedy film, I think that's hard to capture. And I think he did it. I think, you know, critically speaking, it didn't get a lot of great praise. Paul Giamatti did win a Golden Globe for best male actor in I forget what the exact award.
Category was,
Yeah, I
yeah.
forget the category. I think it was a storytell like from a book, I think is what the award was like. But this film is something you watch and you're going to get a different analysis of it from whoever watches it no matter what. I mean, I don't think people are going to love it for the same reasons as another person would love it. Just like I don't think people are going to hate it for the same reasons people hate it. And I chose this film. I almost feel like, the universe knew I was going to make a podcast because, I mean, dude, this film really did something to me, man. I mean, like, I really resonated with that character. I mean, you falling in love after you thought you already fell in love. And, yeah, I mean, this movie is different. I
Yeah.
mean, it really is. It's a different kind of story. They filmed it in a different way. Very hard to capture time periods from 20 years old all the way to the demise. I mean, it's really hard to do with makeup. You have to have brilliant actors to pull it off. Um, yeah, I
One of the
mean,
things the director said that he wished he had done in hindsight was add a narration with Paul Giamatti and put in more of Barney's inner monologue, his thoughts, because there was a lot more of that in the book. And I remember you said that would have definitely taken it to
it,
another
w-
level. And
I think it would
I wonder if it would have made
push
it
it to
more better for
yeah.
me as well. Like, um, we've mentioned Boogie, the character, his friend who ends up uh, dying under suspicious circumstances, and that was played by Scott Speedman. He did a great job. You got Dustin Hoffman, who plays Barney's dad, Izzy,
And he was
Israel, and
phenomenal.
he's funny in every
He's
scene he's in.
hilarious.
And you see where Barney gets some of his brashness from, some of his like, because his father was very much that way too. Just doesn't care what he says. He's gonna if it's what he's thinking, he's gonna say it. Uh, which might be another reason why this movie resonated a lot with you as well, because that's sort of your personality too. Is like if you're thinking it, you're gonna say it. You know what I mean? And like,
Right.
uh, and that doesn't always hit people the right way.
It don't.
But, a big part of this movie, you know, Mark already mentioned it, is like Barney's married in this movie 3 times. You know, with his first wife, you almost see a different Barney at a younger age, and I wondered if, like, the situation with his first wife who committed suicide, like, sort of hardened Barney a little bit and made him a little bit different of a person, and I wish they had explored that a little bit more because he seemed to, like, care more about people and not be so harsh when you saw the younger Barney. I mean, he was marrying this woman because he had supposedly knocked her up. Turns out not to be his kids, turns out to be one of his
And
friends' kids. And
and
it's
that was
funny
a
because
hilarious part of the movie,
yeah,
man.
because
When
obviously we don't get to see it, but the baby came out dark skinned and they're both
but
white, and like the doctor
but look,
tells him like, you know, I don't think this
yeah.
is your kid. Like,
No, but look, so the guy that knocked up his first wife was one
yeah.
of the groomsmen in the second wife's marriage, and there's this like, this curiosity and questioning behind his second wife's father, Barney's father-in-law the whole time. He's just like, who is this guy? I don't like this guy at all. And and when they're all at the table at the end of the wedding and the black guy cheers and goes mazel tov, that was brilliant. I mean, I die every time I see that shit, man. It's like, and then it goes to his wife's father, like, what the fuck, man? Like,
Yeah.
is this guy Jewish or what? I
And
mean,
speaking of father-in-laws, there was a great scene between Barney and the first father-in-law he had with his first wife after she's committed suicide. The great I'm gonna look at his name real quick. The
I
actor
got
that
his name.
played Charnovsky was
It's Mark
Saul
Camacho.
Rubinek, and
Was it? Oh, no. Oh yeah, you're right. It was Saul Rubinek. Never
and
mind.
he he's a very recognizable face. I don't know that his name is super well known among casual movie fans, but you'll
He's been
recognize his face
yeah.
right away. Like, he's really good. But this is another scene where you get to see like a sort of softer side of Barney. Like the father-in-law of his first wife, I think his their last name was Charnovsky. He didn't understand his daughter, who obviously had mental illness. He didn't, and he blamed a lot of shit on her, and you could tell he just wasn't a good father. And you see this side of Barney where Barney is o obviously annoyed and pissed with this guy. He basically kicks him out, like, even though, like, you know, they're supposed to be consoling together over the death of, you know, the wife and the daughter, and he can't take it. Barney is like, "You gotta get out of this place," like, you know.
What made what you're talking about great though was the fact that, and for the listeners, and again, we are gonna spoil shit on this podcast. So
Yeah.
I think this would be a great time for the viewers to look. If you haven't seen this movie, go and watch the movie and then come and watch us. It will broaden your horizon for what we're speaking on. But in that scene in particular, what you're talking about, um, a lot of the first wife that he married, it wasn't because he was in love with her. He had gotten her pregnant, and they make that known in the film. Like, and his friend Boogie is giving him shit. Everybody's like, "You're really gonna marry this girl? Like, she's not
Yeah.
someone you marry." Like, and when she committed suicide, it was because a letter had been sent that he didn't get late enough. She made dinner. He comes and then he sees it. It's very emotional, man. It's like, it it's dark. It's
It is
really
dark.
dark in the
Yeah.
beginning. I mean, and the tone switches
Yeah.
throughout this film. It's kind of like a roller coaster. And it's hard to do considering you start off dark and then you go to a high it gets dark during the second wedding when he meets the great dude. And we got to shout out this woman, man. Let me tell you something.
Well,
I hate to do this. We're going off the outline, but
oh yeah, no, no,
Rosamund Pike fucking murdered this role.
yeah.
She played the most phenomenal fucking character as far as like that character. I don't think could have been done the way it was by any other actress. This woman murdered it, and I would like to give my flowers to Rosamund Pike. She's been in a lot of great stuff. I think she was in Gone Girl.
Gone Girl.
Um,
That's the one I always think of when I think
I
of
mean,
her.
and
She
dude,
killed
I
it.
mean, I look, as far as acting is concerned, and me, like, dude, I act like I've been in the scene, I've been on these stages, more theater experience. I've never really filmed anything that's been a movie or anything, but dude, she clearly has theater experience. Her mannerisms, her expressions, her reactions to a lot of the things, the way she does her eyes, the way she looks away, it's phenomenal, man. And she was truly born for this role. And I'm sure she was truly born for a lot of other roles she's done. I know I'm not gonna try and like make this her greatest performance of all time, but without her, I don't think this movie does what it does. And I just wanted to give my flowers to her. I thought she was the most phenomenal performance in this film for me. It was better than Paul. Better than Paul for me. I mean,
Well, and when
uh,
you're talking about cast, like, his second wife is played by Minnie Driver, another like very
phenomenal.
recognizable actress, and like, you know, she like
She was in Good
you
Will Hunting
start to
for those that don't,
yeah,
she's done a lot of big stuff before this
yeah.
film. So,
You feel bad for her at first because Barney meets who becomes his third wife at their wedding, and basically falls in love with his third wife while he's at the party of his second marriage. And this is
he
a place
left
where,
his wedding.
yeah, he
He
leaves his
left
wedding to
his
go
wedding
chase this woman
to
down.
chase this woman down.
But, like, she does a great job. Like, at first, you feel bad for this woman. At least I did because of the way
I did
Barney
too.
was treating her. But then, like,
And
not
she's got
that
a
she
master's
not
degree,
that
dog.
she not that she deserved Barney the way Barney treated her, but she turns out she's really a piece of work too. She's hard to deal with. She doesn't really, she ends up eventually sleeping with
She's
Boogie, his best friend, but it's almost like doing Barney a favor because Barney was gonna divorce this woman. His dad had already brought up to him, like, "Dude, she could take everything you have." And Barney's like, "Yeah, but she's got money." And his dad's like, "You think she cares about that, dude? She will still take everything you have." So she gives him this accidental easy out because he busts her committing adultery. So now he knows, like, he's not gonna have to pay, anything in the divorce as long as his best friend will testify for him that he did in fact sleep with her, and I don't know whether we should do you want to get into that scene yet or
I mean, yeah, let's get into it. I mean, look, so the big part of this film was that scene, was this area of the film. It's the middle of the film. He's in his second marriage and they go to Italy for uh honeymoon, I think. And there's a lot of scenes where it's like Barney just, you can already tell he's not invested in this marriage.
yeah.
I mean, even before, like, he had left his wedding to go catch her on the train, and she's like, I mean, dude, you're ridiculous. But she also, and this is why I love Rosamund Pike in this film, is because she also, in her acting, in her performance, lets the audience know she's interested, especially with the note about the hockey game at the end. Because, well, I don't want to get into that. Look, there's a part where Boogie is a drug addict throughout the whole film. We know this. Him and Boogie were getting high, and he's a phenomenal writer. He's a very prominent, up and coming writer who has got book deals. but he doesn't want to, he's a drug addict. So he doesn't want to give, certain things that he's written in, in the beginning of the film. He's showing Barney what he's written. Barney's blown away. He wants to back it because he knows it's going to be a success. And then towards the middle of his second marriage, he hits up Barney and he's like, "Hey, I need a place to kick." So Barney's family has this piece of property on the lake out in Canada, if I'm not mistaken. And they go to Canada to kick, and his wife, because he's not invested in this marriage, and the film really highlights that in a lot of scenes. Like she gives him head one time, and I think during the process, she gets under the cover because he's like, "I want to take a nap." She's like, "No, we're not taking a nap. We're on a honeymoon." And she crawls under the covers to give him head. And he's like, "All right, well, whatever. I'll get my dick sucked." But right before she sucks his dick, she lifts up the covers and ruins the whole romanticism of it and goes, "Did you clean it the way that I asked you to?" And then he's
Yeah.
like, "Yeah." She goes back down. 2 seconds go by. She comes back up. "But did you use the soap I asked you to?" And that just highlights like how Barney feels about this woman. And so throughout all that question of, is this man cheated on me, blah blah blah, and he's sending flowers to Miriam the whole time, and she finds one of the receipts that he's sending flowers to, so she shows up unexpectedly to the lake house, and he pulls out Boogie's like, can't even stand up, he's fucking coming down so hard from the heroin. And they walk in and she tells him like, "Hey, he needed a place to kick." So then he goes out into the town to get some things. And when he comes back, the audience realizes that she's sleeping with Boogie. And what's great about this scene is we don't know if Boogie did it because he's a shitty friend or if Boogie did it to help Paul Giamatti's character. But Paul smiles when he
Yeah.
walks in on his wife sleeping with him. He closes the door, hits the wall, and smiles
It's
because
like his
now
out.
it's his out.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a brilliant thing because the
And
book didn't capture it like that. The book was, more invested in describing the emotions that Barney was going through when he saw it, but it didn't give you any visuals. And the movie does, and I think that's what separates movies from film, obviously. But very powerful scene. They ended up getting into an argument because Paul's like, "I need you to testify for
yeah.
me, dude." Like, and he's like, "I don't know." He's
Yeah.
drunk. He's coming down. He's like, "I don't know if I want to do that." Then they start arguing about, what friends do. They know each other and they start poking at their flaws. They're both immensely drunk. Barney
Yes.
takes out this gun. He fires off a couple of rounds. And, Boogie says, "I'm going to go for a swim." He goes for a swim and he disappears. He
Yeah.
disappears. And
Well, and when they're on the dock, Giamatti has the gun, and at this point in the movie, the audience doesn't know what has happened, but we hear a shot fired, and we see Boogie fall into the water. But we see Paul Giamatti trip right before the shot is fired because he's so drunk. So at this point, the audience before is wondering from the beginning, did he murder this guy? This is the first opportunity where the audience goes, well, did he accidentally murder this guy? Did he commit manslaughter?
right.
So now
But
it's
they
got
can't
you
find the
wondering that.
body. The big thing was
Exactly.
they couldn't find the body. He falls into the lake outside of this property. The police show up, and the policeman was played by a very well-known actor. His name's Mark Addy. For those that don't know Mark Addy, you need to watch more film. You need to watch more Flickin' Off. We will help you. But Mark Addy was a phenomenal actor. I think one of his most prominent roles was in A Knight's Tale with Heath Ledger. He played Heath Ledger's fake squire slash best friend. He's been in a lot of other sitcoms that have really taken off. I can't think of him off the top of my head, but this guy's brilliant. He plays the detective that comes through. For those that don't know, uh, you know, Barney's character, played by Paul Giamatti, has a father in the film, and it's portrayed by Dustin Hoffman, who was an ex-cop, and he shows up on the scene, and the whole time the audience is trying to guess, did Barney accidentally kill Boogie? And actually, fuck that. The audience is trying to guess, how did Boogie die? We don't
Yeah.
know how Boogie dies. All we know is he's disappeared. They can't find a body.
And we
And
know
just
from the second scene of the movie, Barney goes to the bar that he frequents, and this detective is there because in
and this is early in the
somewhat
film, guys, like first
yeah,
30 minutes. Like,
this detective comes to the bar where Barney hangs out and shows him the book he just published, which is about how Barney got away with murder, basically. So this detective has been sort of wanting to bust Barney from the time this incident happened. His whole life, basically, this guy has been after it, trying to find enough evidence to
in the
put Barney
in
away.
and for those that don't know, I mean, again, go watch the movie, guys. But the reason the book was written was because Barney's a very successful head executive of a TV production company. I forget what it was called in the movie, but and shout out to the
Totally
prop.
Useless Productions, I think it was like something
Yeah,
like
something
that. It
like that.
was funny.
But you know what I noticed? The level of detail in this film is phenomenal because in the the scenes where he's old and he's like in his 60s on his way out, they show him walking through his production company, and it's a massive success. And as an audience member watching the film, you see the logo that they had, this giant logo at the front desk. And man, that is, I mean, that's good filmmaking, man. I mean, you got to make this shit real, and they made it real. And but look, that's the whole gist of this film is we don't know how Boogie died, and it it was a really great, it was certainly the best part of the book, and it's certainly one of the main parts of the movie that makes people guess. But I also think that that part was really hard to capture on film, and it made you feel the way you did when you watched it, right? Was like, you know, I'm juggling between Barney's juggle and struggle with the relationships in his life, but we're also like, well, did he really kill this guy? How did this happen? And I think the ending of this film really saved this film, honestly. I mean,
It does. We get after this whole second wife situation, he gets divorced. He convinced Miriam to marry him eventually. And there's some funny stuff around that and how that all plays out. And then they sort of do a quick montage at one part of the movie where you see them have a son and a daughter, and they grow up and go off to college, and they sort of quick cut all that together, which is sort of good. And like you know, should we get into how the third marriage falls apart before we get to the ending? What happens there? Because eventually that marriage falls apart too. I mean,
yeah, let's
he
do it. I
had
mean,
basically they both had a deep love for one another, but she wasn't satisfied with the way Barney
well,
wasn't paying enough attention to like the things that mattered to her in her life.
before we get into this, let's add on. Barney's character in this film isn't the most, like, he's not a gem, he's not a catch. Like,
No,
he's a middle-aged Jewish successful man. He's got a belly, he's got a drinking problem. Um he's not
balding, he
like
smokes cigars,
He's
and
spalding, he smokes cigars. He's not like the most aesthetically pleasing individual, and this woman that he marries for the third time is, and it ends up being the love of his life. And yeah, I mean, like, we got to let the audience know, like, this guy isn't like a fucking, David Hasselhoff,
yes, yeah.
he's He's Paul Giamatti with a drinking problem, all right? Like, fucking, like, and I'm not trying to shit on Paul Giamatti. We all have flaws, but, like,
Yeah.
this woman certainly could have done better, is all I'm trying to say. And the film and the director does a really good job at letting you know, like, this guy isn't like, you know, The Bachelor, so to speak,
Oh,
right?
yeah, no, I mean, that's one thing that's done really well is making Paul Giamatti an unlikable guy, like,
Right.
he's tough to like for sure. The, long story short, he ends up cheating on his wife while she's away. It's a one-time thing, it's a one-night stand, but she can sense something's off when she gets back, and he admits to it and breaks down and said it meant nothing, but that basically ends their marriage.
And what
And
and she's like, shout out to me. Look, Rosamund Pike played a very loyal, deep-rooted character. She was more like her thing was, and they do this brilliant in the film where they have the conversation on the water line in New York City where it's like, I don't want to end up like my parents. You know, I'm really deep rooted in loyalty. I will choose you. Like she lets Barney know in the beginning of the film, like, if you ever fuck me over, it's done.
yeah,
And I mean, and I've faced that in my life before, man, like where it's like, do I choose this instant 30 minutes of pleasure over a lifetime of loyalty and love and commitment? And I think a lot of people have faced that before, and I think that's why the book was so successful, was just, him making those decisions. But yeah, that's pretty much the gist of the movie. I mean,
I
you
think,
know
like, you also get a sense that after they divorce, like, Barney had a much better relationship with his daughter. His son was very upset with the way, obviously he cheated on his wife, this son's mother, and the son is played by Jake Hoffman, which is actually Dustin Hoffman's real son in real life. So, he plays
and
his
that
grandson in the
and
movie,
that was
but in real
beautiful
life,
because
he's
it
his
looks
son.
just like him. They look
Yeah, I thought
yeah.
that was cool. That was a cool little tidbit to have in there, and, I
I
thought
didn't know
that was
that. I
cool.
did not know that he was Dustin Hoffman's son. You just blew
Yeah,
my mind with that one. That was
yeah.
crazy. No,
A
I mean,
and
dude,
one of the scenes Barney has with his daughter is one of the first hints that Barney has autism. They're taking a walk in the park, they're hanging out, and Barney even says, "You're my favorite of my offspring," or whatever, like, and, like, he's like, "I'm having trouble remembering where I left my car." And she's like, "Dad, you took a cab here." And, like, that's the first sign that the audience in this movie gets that, "Oh, something's not right with Barney and his memory," you know?
and I
And
think
that's
that's a
sort
good
of about halfway through, but then in the later third of the movie, you really see Barney start to go downhill really quickly.
and this is a good part to get into the Alzheimer's and what that's really what made this the story that it was Barney's actual struggle with Alzheimer's. And we only get it in the end of the novel, just like we only get it in the end of the movie. But it's a really important part of this story. And it's why it's called Barney's version, man. I mean, he's got this skewed version of things, and we get Barney's version, but we also get the audience's version, which is what really happened. And I think that was really hard to capture. When you read the book, that's sort of what they're juggling in this novel. And dude, when you read that, if I'm a director and I read this book, this is the last film I'm trying to make, right? I
Yeah.
mean, this is a difficult thing to capture on film. I mean,
Yeah.
all of the certain details and memories and stories, and it's just really hard to capture, man. But
At that
um
point, it also is making the audience wonder, like, "Oh shit, do we trust, like, his memory of killing or not
right.
killing his friend? Like, what actually
That's a
happened?"
good
And, like, I think, like, in some ways, I think we should really just get down to, like, the last few minutes of the film because
right.
it really sorta ties it all together. Barney's basically completely out of it now. He's sitting at the cottage where his second wife I guess we sort of skipped over the whole Blair aspect. Maybe we'll come back to that. I don't know.
What aspect? The
Well, his third wife marries this guy named Blair that she met when her and Giamatti were still together. That's played by the great Bruce Greenwood, and he's in a lot of great stuff as well. Right off the top of my head, I'm thinking like the newer
well,
Star Treks. He was in those, but
I
like,
was
or in the first one.
surprised that he had such a small role in this film.
Yeah,
Like, he was big during the time that they filmed this, man. I mean,
yeah.
he had been in a lot of stuff,
Highly
but
recognizable face, even if you don't know his name, it's another face that you're like, "Oh, I know that
well,
guy." Like,
we're gonna have look, if you watch our YouTube, we're gonna have pictures of all these actors. We're gonna
yeah.
have the films of course.
But yeah, then you get down to this final scene where Barney is completely out of it. They're at the cottage that he had been at with Boogie and his wife, and he's just sitting on a bench outside, basically not knowing what's going on in the world. And his son and his daughter are going over his will and going through some things. Now, this is an interesting aspect too, because
And this was towards the
Barney,
end of the film for our listeners. This was
yeah, I
like
mean, it's probably
towards
the
the
last
last 5
5 minutes.
minutes. Yeah.
And you find out all this stuff that, like, Barney had done in his life that nobody really knew about. One of the things I found interesting was, he's a producer at this production company, like you said, and he produces a hit soap opera. And there's a actress on this soap opera. The character's name was Solange, who there's this
Hilarious
whole like
scenes.
little side story that is happening about she has a massive following in Bulgaria, and she's like, "I wanna go there," and, like, there's all these fans who love me, and you find out that this was all fake. Barney had made all this up and wrote articles and had them published in order to make her think she had all these fans. They sort of play it in the movie as like this is supposed to be a good thing, but this is another thing where I felt like, how is
He's
that
kind
a
of an
good thing
asshole.
though? Like,
Like,
what if
yeah,
she
like,
ever finds out that this was all fake? This for a decade of her life, she thought she had all these fans.
and
What is that?
this was a part of the book that was way more described and written out in detail than it was in the film. And again, is one of the major challenges of capturing this on film because you only have a certain time limit in a movie to capture what might have been 186 pages in the book, right? Like,
Yeah.
but um
As
yeah, man. I mean
as
that
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
no, that that was one of the parts of the movie that was heavily written about in the book that they only had like maybe 2 scenes. I think it
Yeah.
was only really 2 scenes in the movie where
Yeah.
Solange and then he just like loses it. I mean,
Yeah.
but the
So
emotional no, go
when
ahead.
he's on this bench, you
Oh,
start
yeah.
to hear like an overlay in the movie of a news story that's coming out about a body that they find in the woods. And it's the body of this guy or at this point, I think is a skeleton. It's a skeleton of this guy who died 30 years ago. And the news reporter is saying it appears that he died in a skydiving accident. So
Well,
just
the
in this brief moment, the audience is going, what the fuck now? This
what
guy
the
died
fuck?
in a skydiving
He
accident?
fell in the water. Like,
Yeah,
what? Like,
what? We see him go in the water. And do you want to describe the plane and what the big
I'll look. So
realization is?
in the this is what was and why I think Richard, what's his name again? It's
Richard J. Lewis.
Richard J. Lewis deserves a massive credit for how this was portrayed in film because in the scene in the initial scene where Boogie dies, where he or disappears, we don't know as an audience that he's dead. They can't even find the body. But there's this scene where they they have a close up and it was brilliantly done. Brilliantly done. I mean, I've watched too much film to not have a professional opinion on this. And they zoom in on him falling backwards with his goggles on because he puts flippers on and goggles. They're arguing while they're drunk and he falls back. and you hear the plane in the background. You
Yeah.
hear it. You don't see it yet, but you hear it. And then when Barney passes out after he trips and lets off a round, you see this plane flying over the wood line across the lake. And it doesn't really make sense to you as an audience watching this the first time.
It's just
But then
something
late
happening in the background. Yeah, it's just
exactly. You don't really pay attention to the plane, but it's there, and that's the brilliance of being a director. It's there, and
yeah,
it makes rewatchability a fucking factor.
yeah.
And I mean, me and you made this podcast because we love this shit so much. We notice shit like this, so we're gonna talk about it. And at the end of the film, when he's on the bench and his son is handing him a cigar, and he's trying to like get him to remember how to smoke the cigar because he really likes the cigar. You see a plane land on the water, pick up this beach ball, and as he's driving or as the plane is flying away, the beach ball falls out with the water because there's a lot of forest fires supposedly in this part. And they use these planes to land on the water, pick up the water, and drop it on a forest fire of some
Yeah.
sort or whatever. But they had
So
this
now as
brilliant,
an audience, it's all clicking, it's all
it's
coming
clicking.
together, and you're going, "Oh shit, that's what happened to this guy. He got scooped up. That's why nobody could ever find the body." And
It's why
even
the head
now, the
trauma in
news
his
doesn't
head, this,
know what's going
right,
on either. They think he died in a freaking skydiving accident, but you almost get a glimmer in Paul Giamatti's eyes for a moment, like he has
like,
a moment of
wow, he,
clarity, and it clicks with him too. And I thought
right.
that was really cool.
But what was really brilliant about this, and I wrote it down here, it's the tragic irony in this film. And when what you were just talking about, where you might think he realizes it, but he's in like the end of Alzheimer's. Like he
Yeah.
doesn't remember anything. And it's the story is about a man obsessed with telling his version of what took place with him and Boogie. And because of Alzheimer's, he's robbed of the ability to remember everything clearly. And I'm so glad you said that because I felt the same way. At the end of that scene, he has this like this moment of clarity where he's like, wait, that's how that motherfucker died. But it's also brilliant because how could he remember? He's got Alzheimer's. Like
Yeah.
he's literally in the last stages of Alzheimer's. But I just wish this director got a little bit more credit for this, man. I mean, I really do. When
I
we
will say, like, for it being, like, such a financial flop that it was, one thing I read was that, uh, it had very little marketing and it didn't have a wide release.
oh
So,
yeah.
given those 2 things, how did they ever expect it to make its money back? It feels like the studio didn't really put in enough money. One thing the director and Paul Giamatti have both talked about was this was sort of an era in movie making, and it goes back to a theme you and I always talk about making original movies and studios taking chances where, like, it, it, they took a chance on this movie. It didn't pay off for them, but they also didn't invest in it heavily. It just, it makes movies like this tougher to get made because of situations like this.
I think the marketing aspect of it was the director's love of the novel. We're going back to what I was saying. In 1997, he picks up this book, Barney's version. He reads it. He loves it. And then the author passes away, and he has this like urge to make this film. And I think what was lost in the marketing was maybe, and this is just my opinion for the listeners. You don't look, I'm not a look, everything me and Jacob say is our opinions. This isn't really what happened, but I'm a human being and I love film so much. And I really watch film in a different light. And I think the director really loved this book so much that he was preying on the love of this novel to come through as far as audience
Yes.
coming to see this movie. And I mean, he missed with it. Obviously, I mean, 30 million and you only come out with 12, you didn't even make half of your money back. But Dude, the film was brilliantly done. I mean, yeah, I mean, even when they go as far as time is concerned in film, it's really hard to adapt as far as like, all right, well, we got to make sure that the electronics are the same at this time period. We got to make
Yeah.
sure that, this pin that he's using in this scene was made at this time period. And, I mean, it's little subtle details like that, and they fucking nailed it for this film. They really fucking nailed it for this film. And a big thing for the book was the fact that a plane can land on water. I know people, when you think about it, know that planes can land on water, but for the sake of storytelling, that really was a cool part of the story. Was like, he used this plane, which there's not too many of them. I think there's only one model of a plane that can land on water. I mean, there's only a couple, and maybe not just one,
Well,
but
yeah, I'm
there's
sure there are
right, but
multiple, but it's a specialized plane. It's a
exactly,
specialized
right, yeah,
plane. I think that's
exactly.
a good point too to like mention like right before the credits, the director dedicates this movie to the author of the book who we haven't mentioned yet. His name was Mordecai Rickler, and it says
Shout out
1931
Mordecai Rickler, dude.
to 2001. So he was 70 when he passed away.
Yeah,
Uh,
I
um,
mean,
I think another fun fact to throw in here that I can't let pass by is, you know, this movie had a lot of roots in Canada, and so there were 4, like, cameos in this movie that were noted Canadian
filmmakers,
directors.
yeah, like
Um, Adam Egan, Ted Ketchoff, Denise Arcand, and my favorite, David Cronenberg. You see David Cronenberg in this movie, the famous body horror director.
I
Most
wrote
people
that
know
down
him
too.
from
That's
The
cool. You
Fly, with Jeff Goldblum, but he's done a lot of great movies, and he's a Canadian filmmaker. Guess I already said that, but it's cool. I think a lot of people who were fans, if you were a Canadian film goer and you knew these directors, it was cool to see them just pop up in little roles throughout the film. So I just
I
wanted to
actually
mention that as well.
I think because of that, this movie was widely loved in Canada for those reasons, not just because of the cameos, but they did a lot of filming of this movie. I think the
Yeah.
entire film was filmed in Canada. Um, but it's look, the reason I picked this movie is because it's definitely a movie that a lot of people missed. And like we said, because of the marketing. Look, when I walked into that PX in Bahrain and saw this on the main, like, how you go into Best Buy. Well, you're not going into Best Buy to buy DVDs anymore, but
Yeah.
when we were growing up and we would go to Best Buy to get these films, they always had the feature films, the newest ones on the head of the aisle. And
Yeah.
that's why I chose this film, was because this was one of the newer films that came out. I see Paul Giamatti and I'm like, I've never heard of this film. And I love Paul Giamatti. Of
Yeah.
course I'm going to buy it. I bought it, watched it. 10 years later, I'm on a fucking podcast with my cousin. So I picked this movie because I know there are going to be so many different opinions on this film. There's going to be a lot of different emotions for different audience members watching this film. And what I think makes great film is when you capture the realm of reality of being a human being, the decision making, the emotions that goes into certain things that happen in our lives. And you're gonna stir up a plethora of emotions from the audience member, whether negative or positive. And I think that's what the book did, certainly. And what a bold decision. We're sitting here last episode talking about bold choices and ways of film, like putting, like, M. Night Shyamalan putting himself in one of the main roles in the film. I think for as a director to read this book, and if y'all haven't read the book, I encourage everyone to go read the book and watch this movie. It really will stir up some emotions that you might have visited throughout your experience in this life that we are all not asking for but forced to live. And I loved it.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna sit here and beg other people to love it. I'm certain that there's gonna be a lot of people that watch this movie and go, I don't know, it just didn't do it for me. But it made you feel something. Certainly, I know that it makes any audience member that watches this film feel something. And if you read the book, you'll really understand just how hard of a story this would be to capture on film,
I'm glad
for
you brought it to
sure.
the podcast because, even though it wasn't the most entertaining for me, I really enjoy something I haven't seen. It had some great performances, and it has definitely kept me thinking about it for a while. But yeah, so good pick. I
For
think I
real.
hear something in the distance. Is that a
I d
train? What is that?
shit, it's the motherfucking hype train!
Hell yeah,
Shit!
brother.
I
Hell
almost
yeah.
missed that motherfucker. We gotta hop on this shit right now, baby. Cause I got a good one.
You do?
Oh
If
my
you got
God,
a
I
good
got a,
one, let me start it off so we can end this
all
with
right,
a
you
killer
started
one then.
off, baby.
Well, first off, to start off my hype train, I wanted to revisit a previous hype train pick that I made, which was early on, I think our second episode, Moneyball. I picked Spinal Tap 2. And I just saw that a few days ago. My wife and I went to the theater, saw Spinal Tap 2, and as a fan, I really enjoyed it. I loved it. I'm obviously not going to spoil anything for people who haven't seen it. I I don't think it's going to grab anybody who didn't see the first one. I don't think any new fans who didn't see the first one are going to watch this one and get it as much as people who were fans of the original. You got to see the original first because there's a lot of jokes that harken back to the first one. You know, the first one was 40 years ago basically, and these guys were all like playing characters that were around 40 at the time it was made. So now they're playing characters that are around 80 years old. So it's the first one of either one of our hype train picks that has come out and we've gotten to see it. So I just wanted to bring that up. Now I'll get on to my hype train pick. I'm going with Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, which is coming
Oh,
out November 7th,
I saw the trailer for that
2025.
yesterday.
I don't think I need to go through the plot. Everybody has
Ah,
probably seen Frankenstein in one iteration or another. So this is Guillermo del Toro's version based on the Mary Shelley novel. Uh, the cast is really good. The creature is played by Jacob Elordi. Oscar Isaac is Dr. Frankenstein. Now, Oscar Isaac, he's in Dune. He's in Ex Machina. Mia Goth is in this. She's playing Elizabeth Valenza. I love Mia Goth and Ty West's horror trilogy, which is X, Pearl, and Maxine. Those are the movies I love her in, but she's been a lot of like other horror movies. She's done a lot of horror movies actually. Infinity Pool, which is cool because that's Infinity Pool is directed by David Cronenberg's son, Brendan Cronenberg, who also does horror movies. And it's also got the great Christoph Waltz in it. People know Christoph from Django Unchained and Glorious Bastards. Uh, it's also got two other great actors, the Irish actor Ralph Ineson and the great Charles Dance. Uh, if you don't know who he is, Mark, when you look up a picture of Charles Dance, you're going to be like, I know this guy. A lot of people know him from The Golden Child and Last Action Hero. At least those are two of my favorites that he's been in. So, yeah, that's my hype train pick for this week.
Oh,
Guillermo del
Charles
Toro's.
Dance. Hey,
Yeah.
whoa. Shout out Charles Dance.
Yeah.
Star Wars
I knew you'd be like, I
motherfucking
love this
epic
guy.
actor, dude.
Yeah. He's
He
great,
pl-
dude.
he
He's
played
great.
one of the generals on the Empire in Star Wars. He's actually he was so great at that role that in all of the animated series in Disney, they use his physical features for that character.
Yeah.
Me and my son used to watch God, what is it called? It's a Star Wars animated series about three bounty hunters or look, I'm
Yeah.
not going to get into it, but the fact that like he was such a great actor in those films and like his features and everything, like
Yeah.
they still widely use that character in the animated series as well. So yeah, no, that was dope. That was a dope pick. Um dude, for me, my fucking hype train, uh I had to do this one simply because I don't think we've seen this duo in a very long time, but there is going to be a Netflix original movie coming out called The Rip, and it is starring Ben Affleck and Matt motherfucking Damon. And when I saw that, I was like, for one, I was shocked that it's a Netflix original. Like, it's not going to theaters,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know? I don't know how, like, to me, it's like, well, is it gonna be good? Or is it just like one of these horrible scripts they threw together for Netflix? Who knows? I don't know. I'm not shitting on Netflix original movies. I love Netflix original movies. Um, Not all of them. They certainly aren't all hitting, but
Yeah.
one for me that really did it for me was Timothy Chalamet's The King. I thought that movie was one of the best Netflix original
I
films I've
watched
ever
that one. Yeah.
I thought it was phenomenal. A lot of people might not like it. It's very dialogue heavy. It's very intense, emotional drama. There's really not a lot of fighting. There is a lot of fighting, don't get me wrong. They have a lot of war scenes and stuff,
Yeah.
but most of the movie is the emotional struggle of the situation that this character's in. But I mean, dude, brilliant. And
Great
for I
production on that movie, a medieval
oh man,
period piece. Oh, yeah, that was
phenomenal. I mean, dude,
yeah.
the costumes, the aesthetics, like all of that shit was spot on. But look, for those that love film, you love Matt Damon and you love Ben Affleck. If you don't like Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, unsubscribe. We don't want you watching our
Hey,
podcast. No,
don't don't do that.
I'm
Don't
just
do no,
kidding. I'm just kidding.
I'm
Look, no.
joking.
There's just look, these guys are phenomenal. They hit the scene together with Good Will Hunting. And for those that don't know, these two wrote that script together while they were in
Yeah.
film school, and they made this movie on their own dime. If I'm so I don't know if a studio picked it up or not. I'm not sure, but if they did get a studio to pick it up, they took a chance on these guys. And that means that they wrote such a phenomenal fucking script that it got made. And not only did it get made, it went on to win and still is considered one of the best films in film history. Good Will Hunting starring Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, and the great late Robin Williams. But the Rip is a movie. It's about a group of Miami cops who discover a stash of millions in cash, leading to distrust as outsiders learn about the huge seizure, making them question who they rely on. I like these kind of films, you know, about cops and dirty training day, but anything that has detectives and the struggle between morality and I love that shit. I think
Yeah.
I think it has potential to be a great film, and I'm hoping it is. But the fact that Matt Damon and Ben Affleck are on screen together again, I mean, dude, how could this not be a good film? I mean, so I mean, that's my motherfucking hype train. The Rip, it's scheduled to come out January 16th of 2026. You're not going to need to go to the theater for this. You're just simply going to need to subscribe to Netflix, get on your fucking couch, recline, and enjoy the film. And you know, I think that's a good thing to bring up on this podcast is, do people like that more of these major critically acclaimed films are going straight to streaming services? Or are you one of them fans that, I want to go to the theater and see it first? I mean, I think we're getting into more people being born into a world where we don't necessarily have to go to the theater to see a great film. Nowadays, they're releasing it straight to HBO. Like Sinners is one of those, for example. I know that film went straight to theaters. But I want to say 2 weeks later, even though it did great in the box office, it was still in the theaters, but also available to you on HBO Max. And I
Yeah.
think that means that the studios and, you know, everyone in Hollywood are rolling with the trend of times where it's like, okay, so we'll still have it in theaters, but we'll also make it available to people to stream online. So,
For
yeah,
me
that's
personally, it depends on what kind of movie it is, you know?
right.
Like, there's certain movies, like, I feel like, "Oh, I don't really need to see it with an audience." There's other movies where I'm like, "I wanna see it on the biggest screen possible with big speakers." So I think for me personally, it depends on what kind of movie it is. Sometimes even with a smaller movie, like maybe a horror movie, for example, I wanna see it in a theater just because I wanna see how people react to it. Like, are people, screaming out stuff, or are they
Right.
they genuinely scared? So I think it really just depends on what it is. Um, Sometimes I think if a movie, the only thing I worry about sometimes is like, growing up in the era with movies that we did, there's certain movies that become like a cultural phenomenon that everybody knows about eventually and everybody sees it. And I haven't seen many of these straight to streaming movies yet where I feel like everybody's like, "Have you seen that one? Like, you gotta
Right.
see this movie." Like,
And
you know,
that's a
and I
great
just
thing to
wonder if
point
that's
out.
going away a little bit.
I think so. I think I could agree with that. I think that the people that that have the decision making to release these movies straight, they watch the movie and go, well, this isn't something that we're going to release in the box office. But that also, we could talk about how, like, there are filmmakers that film movies solely for the theater experience. I mean, last episode, we just touched on Split. I don't think M. Night Shyamalan filmed Split and kept this secret the whole time for a
Yeah.
fucking straight to streaming release,
Yeah.
you know? But I mean, we could talk about Get Out and how Get Out, if you watched Get Out in
Awesome.
theaters as opposed to watching it at home, you did not get the same experience.
Dude,
That
it was one of the best movies to see in the theater. The audience was
best.
just reacting to everything, and it was a movie that, like, when you got out, you felt like you had to tell your friends, like, "You need to go see this movie. Like, you
And
gotta go see this movie."
when you listen, I think it's Jordan Peele is his name.
Yeah.
When
Yep.
Jordan Peele talked about that film, he said he wrote that script for the theater experience. And I'm one of those people that saw it first. You know, I was at my friend Michael Lindsay's house. Shout out Michael Lindsay, man. You got an anniversary coming up. But he showed me this movie at his house or his apartment, and I'd never heard of it, saw it, and I watched it in his apartment and was amazed. And I remember the first thing I thought after the film ended was, I wish I could have fucking saw this in theaters, dude.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
geez. But yeah, dude. I think this is a great time to end the episode. I'm sorry, guys. I know you wish we had 2 hours of this, but we don't. Um, Flicking off, baby. We are appreciating. I think me and Jacob both really want to say thank you to everybody that has been subscribing, everybody
Yeah.
that has been reaching out to us. We've been checking the analytics and it's only going up. It's not going down. And that really motivates us to keep doing this. Me and Jacob love doing this, so we're going to continue whether we get the fucking analytic praise or not. But it really feels good. It feels good because we took a chance and it's working and we're getting a lot of love. What we really want you to like, subscribe, share. Me and Jacob are truly indebtedly focused on creating a very eclectic catalog of films that you might have missed, might not have seen. Every time Jacob picks a movie, these last 4 or 5, it's one that I haven't seen, and I enjoy it very thoroughly. So I know if I'm getting that experience doing this show, y'all will certainly get this experience following this show. So please, we love y'all. We love flicking off. Jacob, you got anything you want to let the listeners know?
I think I just wanna say, if you're interested in our hype train picks, we'll have the links down below. Hit us up on X, all those links will be below. And we got a good episode for you next week too.
We do. And we're gonna start releasing reels on our hype trains, guys. Be on the lookout for that. But yeah, we're gonna start doing a little bit more different stuff to like market the show for sure. But I'm saying all this to let y'all know we're not fucking going anywhere. All right. We're gonna keep coming to you every motherfucking week. Okay. I mean, I drove 300 miles and spent a lot of fucking money to get episode 3. And for those, a little gem for everybody that's listening, me and Jacob have had these conversations throughout my entire life growing up. We would be on the phone talking about certain movies, maybe not as in depth as this, but we certainly just would talk about the performances, talk about what it might do to the generation, talk about the boldness, the risk taking. So yeah, I mean, flicking off episode motherfucking 7. We're gonna see you fucking next week right here, same place, same time, Monday, 12 a.m. And we love you. Peace.